My name is Lauren. I was 27 when my mother handed me a used cocktail napkin and said, "Can you throw this away, sweetheart?" I thought betrayal had a limit. I was wrong. The night was supposed to be the apex of everything I'd built. After 4 brutal years in event architecture, I finally landed the account that changed everything: the Montrose Global Philanthropy Gala. It wasn't just a prestigious booking, it was mine. My firm designed the space, ran the logistics, built the mood, the lighting, the music, the menus. My signature was everywhere, down to the ribbon wrap on the floral stems. And I invited them. I didn't have to. I hadn't seen my parents in 8 months, not since they accidentally forgot to RSVP to my civil wedding with Sam. But something inside me still clung to hope. Hope that if they saw what I'd built, really saw it, they'd soften, or apologize, or just stop pretending I didn't matter. So I sent them VIP invitations, front table, prime view of the stage. And they came. They even brought my sister, Heather. She wore a gold dress like she thought it was her night. At first, I stayed in the background. I do that well. It's how I survived childhood, by learning the art of invisibility. I moved through the crowd with my headset, adjusting sightlines, checking the catering queue, making sure the champagne towers were lit from the right angle. When I approached their table, I expected a hug, or at least a nod. Instead, my mom snapped her fingers. "Oh, good," she said brightly, handing me a crumpled napkin. "Could you toss this? And if you have any of those little lamb skewers, we'd love a tray. Thanks, honey." She didn't say my name. My father barely looked up. He was too busy pouring wine into Heather's glass and laughing about how these nonprofit parties always overdo it. I froze, just long enough to process what had happened, just long enough to realize it wasn't a joke. They didn't recognize me, or worse, they did. And they wanted me small. I took the napkin, I don't know why, reflex maybe. I hadn't spoken yet. I hadn't even opened my mouth. Heather tilted her head. "Are the gift bags leather this year or vinyl? The ones from last year were so cheap." They didn't ask what I was doing there. They didn't ask about the firm. They didn't ask why the logo projected behind the stage bore my initials in subtle silver. Instead, my mom waved a hand vaguely toward the floral arch. "You might want to adjust those centerpieces. The roses are wilting." They weren't. I should have said something, corrected them, introduced myself, like a stranger, or maybe like someone who hadn't once lived in their house for 18 years, building dreams out of silence. But I walked away, down the side hallway, into the caterer's prep room where nobody asked questions. My assistant, Troy, found me there, 30 minutes later. He paused. "You okay?" I nodded. "They're here," he winced. "I saw them. Didn't they?" No. He looked like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. Instead, he handed me the tablet. "Speech notes? You're up after the awards." I nodded again. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying, not yet. But I was unraveling. Because nothing hurts more than realizing the people who raised you still see you as the least important person in the room, especially when it's your room. The lights dimmed. A hush settled like silk over the crowd. I stood behind the velvet curtain, hands steady now. Not calm, steady. There's a difference. Calm waits, steady moves. Troy stood beside me, whispering final cues into the headset. 2 minutes. The foundation chair will introduce you. Take the mic center stage. Then spotlight hits. You've got 5. 5 minutes to introduce the beneficiary project. 5 minutes to represent the night I built from scratch. 5 minutes to stand in front of the parents who thought I was the help. I didn't need 5. The foundation chair walked out, applause rising. She spoke about innovation, empathy, design. Words that once felt distant now felt like skin. Then, tonight's space, flow, and impact all stem from the vision of one woman. Our partner, our architect, please welcome the founder of LM Design Group, Lauren Marks. They didn't clap right away. That beat, the one where recognition collides with ego, hung in the air like broken glass. Then the room exploded. I stepped out past the velvet into a sea of faces. Powerful people, donors, artists, mayors, influencers, my world, my work. And in the middle row, lit by soft amber uplighting, my mother lowered her champagne flute. My father blinked. Heather's mouth was still open. I stood at center stage, no mic stand, just wireless grip. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," I began, voice clear. "But mostly, I want to thank the people who didn't know I belonged here, because you reminded me why I built this." Silence, sharp, heavy. The project we're launching tonight began with a forgotten lot behind a community shelter. It became this because someone believed that empty spaces could be transformed. I paused. Let that settle. Sometimes transformation is loud. Tonight it's elegant. From the corner of my eye, I saw Heather shift in her seat, whisper something to Mom. She didn't answer. I held my breath for half a second, then kept going. When I started this firm 4 years ago, people told me I was too young, too quiet, too unsure. But vision doesn't ask permission, and spaces don't judge the hands that shape them. Applause, brief, then building. And just like this room, lit with intention, designed with care, we become something different when someone finally turns the light on. I closed the speech with the official donor thanks, the beneficiary name, and the grant totals. No stumbles, no apologies. Then I walked off. The applause followed me. Backstage, Troy looked like he wanted to hug me but didn't dare. Instead, he whispered, "They know now." I nodded. Good. 10 minutes later, I returned to the ballroom. As myself this time. Not with a tray, not with a headset, just me, and they saw. Mom didn't speak. Dad gave a stiff half nod. Heather raised her glass. "Nice job," she said. "That speech must have taken forever to memorize." I smiled tightly. "I didn't memorize it." "Oh?" "I lived it." I walked away before the silence could swallow me again. The string quartet started playing again, soft and perfect, as if nothing seismic had just happened. I stood by the corner column near the bar where I could see the room but not be consumed by it. That's the thing about event design. You always know where the light lands and where it doesn't. You build the shadows on purpose. Mom found me first. She walked like someone preparing for an interview. Shoulders back, eyes cautious, lips already forming a sentence before she arrived. "Well," she said, with that brittle smile I knew too well. "That was quite a surprise." I tilted my head. "Was it?" She blinked. "Of course. We had no idea you were involved at that level." I nodded, slow. "You mean the level where I own the company and curated every detail of the night?" Her eyes flickered. "Don't be dramatic." And there it was, not "I'm sorry," not "we're proud," just a familiar deflection designed to shrink me back down. I didn't flinch. "Mom, you handed me garbage," I said flatly. "You looked at me in full makeup with a badge and treated me like hotel staff." "I thought you were helping out," she murmured. "It's not personal." "It never is. That's the problem." She didn't respond. Dad joined us then, holding 2 glasses of red. He offered one to Mom, then turned to me. "You made quite the speech," he said, like I'd just finished a college presentation. I smiled thinly. "And you made quite the assumption." He shifted, visibly uncomfortable. "It's a crowded night. We didn't recognize you." I didn't correct him. I just looked past him, toward Heather, who was now laughing at something a donor said. One hand on her hip like she belonged in every photo. That's when I noticed it. The lanyard around her neck, a black VIP badge, custom branded, with my company's logo. My team had only issued 8 of those, 6 for top donors, 1 for the keynote host, and 1 final set aside for, oh. I turned to Troy, who had reappeared with 2 staff members to adjust a backdrop curtain. I called him over, quietly. "Troy," I said, eyes still on Heather, "did you give my sister a VIP badge?" He hesitated. I thought it came from your parents. They said you requested it personally." I didn't speak, just let that sit between us. He leaned in. "Do you want me to take it back?" "No," I said. "Let her wear it. Let everyone think she belongs in that light, just long enough." He nodded once and walked off. Mom took a sip of wine, then said, "Honestly, Lauren, it would have been nice to get a heads up. We didn't dress for this." I looked her over. She wore pearls, always did. "You dressed exactly right," I said, "for someone who came expecting to be catered to." Her lips parted, closed again. I left before she could come up with anything clever. Back near the donor lounge, a woman I'd never met before touched my arm gently. "Ms. Marks, I just wanted to say thank you. Your work tonight, it's transcendent." I nodded, still half in the fog. "Thank you, that means everything." And it did. But it didn't fix what I now understood. My family didn't forget who I was. They chose not to see me. By midnight, the ballroom smelled like orchids and ambition. The donors had begun to trickle out. Flashbulbs slowed. Waiters cleared crystal from linen. The air was softer, but not quiet. I stayed near the rear lounge, sipping club soda from a wine glass. Just enough pretense to keep people from trying to refill it. Heather was still basking under the chandelier, surrounded by the last few influencers desperate to stay relevant past dessert. She had found her light and clung to it like it belonged to her. Troy approached quietly, phone in hand. "You need to see this." I lowered my glass. He turned the screen to face me. A local culture blog, followed by half the city's social elite, had posted an event roundup already. 6 photos. One from our lighting grid, high and cinematic. The caption, "Incredible night at the Montrose Gala. Congrats to Heather Marks, founder of LM Design Group, for a truly visionary space." I didn't speak, I just looked. The image showed Heather mid-laugh, drink in hand, my logo projected behind her. The badge she wore was fully visible, and under that, my name, not hers. But no one would check. They never do. Troy was already typing. "Want me to message them? Demand a correction?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I scrolled. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments, people tagging each other, saying how she's killing it and so glad a woman is finally running that scene. I stared at the glow of my own stolen life. "No," I said finally. "Don't correct it yet." Troy frowned. "You sure?" I nodded. "I want to see who shares it." He understood immediately. Because when someone steals your spotlight, it's not just about what they take. It's about who claps while they're holding it. I stepped away, moving into the hallway where the planners were stacking final equipment bins. The night was over, but the aftermath had only just begun. 15 minutes later, I saw my parents again. They were by the coat check, smiling. Mom was holding court with 2 old family friends. The ones who'd always said Heather had that sparkle. And she just makes spaces feel alive. Mom was saying, "It's not just decoration, it's emotional engineering." I stopped a few feet away. "She's been doing this since college," she continued. "Just needed the right platform." They weren't talking about me, they were quoting my bio, word for word. I stepped forward. "Interesting, didn't realize Heather studied architecture." Mom didn't even blink. "Oh well, she didn't formally, but you know how talent works." I laughed once, low. "Yeah, I do." Dad cleared his throat. "You've had your moment, Lauren. Let your sister shine a little. You're the one who brought her." I looked him dead in the eye. "I brought you both." Neither replied, and that was the moment something inside me clicked. Not broke, shifted. Because they weren't confused, they weren't mistaken, they were complicit, all of them. I left without another word. Backstage, Troy had already packed up the show devices. But when he saw my face, he paused. "It's worse, isn't it?" I nodded. "They knew, all of them." He hesitated. "What now?" I looked down at my name tag, then at my hands. "Now," I said. "We let them talk, let them steal, let them build a narrative that doesn't belong to them." And then I looked up, and then I take it back, loudly. The morning after the gala felt like standing in the center of a collapsed stage. I sat in my office downtown, glass walls, polished concrete, flowers still fresh from last night's tablescape. But it felt wrong, like a crime scene cleaned too quickly. Troy stood across from me, scrolling through the digital logs. "No signs of external breach," he said. "No hacked emails, no system override. If someone changed the badge assignments, it was from our team." I leaned back in the chair I'd paid for, but never felt like I owned until now. "Go to the back end. Look at who generated Heather's credentials, the actual login ID." He hesitated. "Lauren, if this was just some junior staffer..." "It wasn't," I said. "We vet our juniors better than we vet family." He tapped, clicked, paused, then, "It was Ava." I froze. Ava was Heather's old roommate, hired 3 months ago after a glowing recommendation from my mother. She worked in client services, entry level. She should never have had access to credential routing. I narrowed my eyes. Pull her onboarding records, check access logs. When did she request elevated permissions? Troy's face twisted. 2 weeks ago, approved by me? I looked up sharply. He held up his hands. "Lauren, I swear I don't remember doing this. I don't just click anything." But I knew what happened. Ava must have sent the request on a busy prep day, masked it as something routine. Troy trusted the system, trusted me, trusted our process. She counted on that. I stood. "Troy," I said carefully, "schedule an all-hands meeting for noon. Mandatory." He nodded, then paused. "What are we telling them?" "Nothing yet." "Are we firing her?" "Not yet." He hesitated. "You're going to let her stay?" "No," I said. "I'm going to let her talk." And she did. At 12:04, Ava walked into the conference room like nothing was wrong, clipped her badge on, smiled at the snack table, then she sat across from me. "Morning," she chirped. "Everyone's saying last night was a hit." I slid a printed version of the guest credential list toward her. Her name, the permissions request, the timestamp. "You authorized a switch." She blinked. I don't think so. That must have been a tech error. Tech doesn't assign fake titles. You gave Heather my badge. You rerouted my name to hers. And you did it under Troy's credentials." The room fell silent. Ava's face changed. Slowly, the mask slipped in increments. "She asked me to," she said. "Heather, she said it was just for optics, that you didn't care, that it would be good for the family if she looked elevated." The word burned. Elevated, like I'd been standing beneath her the whole time, arms raised to keep her from falling. Troy leaned forward. "Why would you go around Lauren's authority? You report to her." Ava shrugged. "I thought she knew. Your mom said," and there it was, my mother's fingerprints, Heather's fingerprints, all over my life. I stood slowly. "This is your last day," I said. "Collect your things." Ava opened her mouth, closed it, nodded once, then left. The rest of the staff stayed quiet. Troy looked at me. "What now?" I breathed in, out. "Now we call the press team, and then I call my lawyer." Because I didn't just want my name back, I wanted the paper trail. 3 days after the gala, I was sorting invoices when I opened the wrong envelope. It was addressed to my office, but not in my name, Heather's. And below that, in perfect bold font, LM Design Group Family Division. There is no family division. Inside was a brochure, thick cardstock, full-color high gloss, featuring Heather. In a blazer she borrowed from my closet last year, she stood in front of a community shelter renovation, smiling like the project was hers. But it wasn't the photo that hit me. It was the title. Presented by Heather Marks, Family Impact Director, LM Design Group. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I turned the page. On the back was a fundraising appeal. A separate bank account, a mailing address linked to a P.O. box under my parents' real estate holding company. And a mission statement that stole my words, almost verbatim from our original nonprofit collaboration charter. The one I wrote, the one I never signed over. I picked up my phone and dialed Troy. He answered on the first ring. "I need eyes on something," I said. Now, 20 minutes later, he was in my office with his laptop and 2 legal pads. "I scanned the QR code on the brochure," he said, already scrolling. "They built a whole subpage. It's registered under a separate LLC, Mark's Family Fund." My stomach twisted. "Is it connected to our corporate backend?" "No, but they copied your font pack, your tone. They even listed 3 of our active projects under their brand name." "And donors?" He hesitated. "Already a dozen contributors. Some big names from your past work." I swallowed hard. "They're stealing my impact," I said quietly. "Not just my image, my legacy." He didn't argue. Instead, he pulled out a printout. "This came from our archive," he said. "Remember the proposal you sent to the Midtown shelter last year?" I nodded. "They rebranded it, used your draft. Heather pitched it as her own, last week." "Before or after the gala?" "Day before." I sat in silence for a moment. All the strange pieces, Mom's sudden interest in my firm's community work, Heather's unexplained meetings, the way my family showed up to the gala like it was part of a plan, clicked into place. They'd been using me as a prototype, all I'd built, all I'd dreamed, quietly copied and stripped of name, until the moment I outshone them. Then they tried to bury me in plain sight. I stood. "I want cease and desist letters prepped by morning," I said. "Every donor contacted personally. Clarify who owns what, and Troy, freeze their access. No more back-end logins. I don't care who calls." He nodded, but his face was tight. "What?" I asked. "There's something else," he said. "I called one of the gala sponsors, the big one. I was going to thank them, but they thought they already spoke to you." My heart dropped. "They didn't." "I know, but Heather did, using your name. They even posted it, tagged you, you got credit, but she took the check." I closed my eyes. The fund was just the surface. Beneath it was a full impersonation, strategic, rehearsed, sanctioned. By family, by blood, by people who smiled in my face while stealing every inch of ground I'd fought for. I opened my eyes. "Okay," I said, "no more waiting." Because they hadn't just misused my brand. They weaponized it. I booked the table under my maiden name. Corner booth, discreet, private but not hidden, just enough visibility to keep people civil. The host didn't blink when I handed her the reservation card. Of course, we'll bring out the house Pinot. She gestured toward a velvet-lined alcove near the windows, far from the center but close enough to the fireplace to glow. Perfect. At 6:58 they arrived. My father first, ever prompt. Then my mother, draped in something new, expensive, and trying too hard. Heather trailed behind, looking down at her phone like she hadn't read the cease and desist letter I'd sent less than 24 hours earlier. They slid into the booth across from me. No one said hello. I didn't offer menus. I didn't smile. I ordered for us, I said calmly. You'll like it. Mom gave a tight nod. We assumed this was about the gala. If you wanted to talk, you could have. It's not about the gala, I cut in. It's about the brochure. Heather looked up. I pulled it from my bag, pristine, unfolded, laid it flat in the middle of the table like evidence. My father's lips thinned. You used my brand, my name, my architecture. You built an entire campaign around something I never agreed to, never signed off on, and never saw until it was already printed. We were trying to honor you, Mom said quickly. It's family outreach. Your work inspires people. This was about legacy. You forged a legacy with someone else's hands, I replied. Heather leaned forward. I thought you'd be flattered. I'm not. She shrugged, faux casual. It's not like we made money from it. You collected donations. They went to the shelter. No, I said. The account went through the Marks Family Fund. Not the nonprofit, not the shelter. Your names, not mine. My father shifted in his seat. Lauren, this feels dramatic. It was an oversight. It was theft, I said flatly, and I have counsel to back that up. Heather scoffed. You're going to sue your own family? If I have to. That stopped the table cold. The fire popped behind me, faint and rhythmic. My voice stayed even. I built something. You tried to hollow it out and wear it like a mask. You didn't just borrow my name, you weaponized it. You sold influence you didn't earn. You took money under false pretenses. And you used the trust I spent years building to elevate yourselves. Mom blinked. We just wanted to help you grow. I smiled, bitter. No, you wanted me quiet, useful, like always. No one denied it. I slid a second paper across the table. A formal dissolution agreement, legal language revoking any rights or associations between LM Design Group and the Marks Family Fund. Full separation, publicly notarized. You'll sign this tonight, I said, and issue a statement by morning, or I will. Heather looked like she wanted to fight. My father leaned back. And if we don't, I met his gaze. Then your donors will receive a file folder with timestamps, asset lists, email trails, and project records, all showing what you took and what I never gave. Silence. The waitress arrived then, smiling awkwardly, 3 plates balanced like a juggler on instinct. I waited until she left before speaking again. Enjoy dinner, I said. The signature page is in the envelope. I'll see you at the press conference, unless you'd rather I host it alone. I stood, buttoned my coat, and walked out. I didn't look back. The next morning should have felt clean. I'd set my terms. I'd walked away standing. The statement was scheduled. My lawyer was reviewing the final press packet, every piece of the truth, documented, dated, undeniable. And then my phone buzzed, Troy's name. Rapid-fire text. Who leaked the deck? Check local column, they published half our outline. My blood turned to static. I dropped the mug in my hand. It didn't shatter, but the coffee stained everything. The sleeve of the silk blouse I'd picked for the media call, the white pages of the contract mock-ups, my own sense of finality. I opened the article. It was a business lifestyle blog. Gossip tier, but still dangerous. They'd published a breakdown of alleged tensions inside LM Design Group, claimed a family rift, claimed Heather had been cut out, claimed I was rebranding out of resentment. But what shook me wasn't the spin, it was the language. They quoted phrases word for word from our internal press draft, a document that had never left our private server. Someone had leaked it, and not just any someone with access. I dialed Troy. He picked up on the second ring, breath tight. It wasn't me. I know, I said, but someone inside the circle cracked. He swore under his breath. Could it be Ava, on her way out? No, I said. The access logs were scrubbed yesterday. This happened after. And she's not that subtle. I opened my laptop, fingers moving faster than thought. Logged into our cloud, looked at the edit history. One change stood out, logged late last night, new IP, one we'd never used before. But the location pinged close, downtown, within 10 blocks. I narrowed the filter. Only 3 staffers lived in that radius. 2 were interns. The third? Celia, our senior brand strategist, polished, loyal, or so I thought. She'd been quiet during the last few meetings, neutral, not absent, just too still. I stared at the log, her username, her credentials. The copy download at 10:11 p.m. Troy, I said, can you call Celia into my office? Pause. She's not here. What? She called out this morning, said she wasn't feeling well. I closed my eyes. The oldest trick in the book, disappear before the hit lands. I stood. Call legal. I want a confidentiality breach review started now and send a runner to her address. Physical documents only. Troy didn't argue. But I could hear it in his breath, the fear that this wasn't just about a leak, that something deeper had started cracking beneath our feet. An hour later, it got worse. A message pinged my personal phone, an anonymous tip. No name, no trace, just a screenshot. It showed Heather, sitting at a table with Celia and my mother, smiling, holding glasses of wine. The caption? Planning tomorrow's next step, timing is everything. That's when I understood. They hadn't just tried to claim my work. They were trying to claim the narrative. If they couldn't use my brand, they'd discredit me before I reclaimed it. And Celia, she was their mouthpiece, their inside lens. I sat down, slowly, because this wasn't just a war of truth anymore. It was a war of sequence, and I just lost the first shot. I didn't sleep that night, not a single minute. Instead, I sat in my home office, backlit by the soft amber glow of my desk lamp, scrolling through every public-facing post, every whisper headline, every falsely attributed quote that twisted my silence into something complicit. Celia hadn't just leaked content, she'd redirected the entire narrative arc. She made me look like a tyrant with a grudge. But tyrants are defensive. I wasn't going to defend. I was going to reframe. By morning, I had a script. Not for the press, not for legal, for a live panel. A Women in Design Summit had been scheduled weeks before. Small audience, intimate venue, live-streamed across a network of creative platforms. I had originally agreed to sit as a third speaker in a neutral Q&A. Now I called the coordinator. I want to open it. He hesitated. The topic is still imposter syndrome, right? I smiled tightly. Yes, but I'm changing the lens. He didn't argue. By 11:30 a.m., I was backstage, mic clipped, outline in hand. The moderator nodded once, then gestured. I stepped out. The space was warm, soft pink spotlights, textured walls, a room full of mostly women, half of them under 35, all of them leaning forward like this was church. I didn't use the podium. I stood beside it. My name is Lauren Marks, I began. I'm the founder of LM Design Group, and this week I learned that imposter syndrome doesn't always come from inside. A stillness settled. Sometimes, I continued, it's projected onto you by people who benefit from your shrinking. A few heads nodded. One woman put her hand to her mouth. I used to think imposter syndrome was just self-doubt, I said. Then I watched my own name used to raise funds for a project I never approved. I saw my image borrowed, my words recited, my legacy repackaged by people I once called family. Now every head was up. I kept my voice level. They didn't forge my signature. They forged my absence. They assumed I wouldn't speak because it would make things messier, colder, louder. I let the pause breathe. And for a while, they were right. A ripple went through the crowd. But then I remembered. Silence is not grace. It's currency, and I refused to give mine away for free. Applause started, slow, then growing. I looked directly into the live stream camera. To every woman who's ever been erased politely, gently, professionally, I see you. We don't owe the world our quiet. We owe it our clarity. When I stepped off stage, the moderator mouthed, "Thank you." The coordinator shook my hand. 3 guests in the front row were crying. Troy was waiting backstage, earbuds in, phone open. "You're trending," he said. I exhaled. "For what?" He turned the screen. A clip of the line, "They forged my absence." Already viral, already quoted, already owned by me. I turned my phone off, sat for the first time all day. "You think it'll land?" I asked. Troy looked at me. "It didn't just land," he said. "It lit a fuse." But I wasn't smiling. because I knew what came next. They wouldn't go quiet. They'd come harder, but this time I was ready. The envelope arrived by courier. No email, no calls, no warning. Just a white folder delivered to my office by a man in a gray jacket who wouldn't make eye contact. I didn't need to open it to know what was inside, but I did anyway. The header was sharp, cold, serifed, Marks and Levy Legal Associates, a boutique firm my father had used since his first commercial deal. Their stationery hadn't changed since I was in high school. Beneath the header, a cease and desist order, addressed to me, claiming defamation, public misrepresentation, and intentional interference with fundraising operations. They cited the summit. My quote, the virality. They were trying to muzzle me with my own truth. I turned the page. Attached was a second document, personal, handwritten, not notarized. From my mother. Lauren, you've made your point, loudly, publicly. You're hurt, we understand that, but continuing down this path only creates more damage, for everyone. This doesn't need to escalate. Drop the media campaign, let the fun continue. Heather's doing good work now and people believe in it. Let this go. If not for us, for your future. Yours and Daniel's. I blinked. Daniel. They brought him into this. My fiancé had stayed out of it, deliberately, respectfully. He hadn't spoken to my parents since the gala, not because I asked, because he knew. But now, suddenly, they'd named him. I called him immediately. He answered on the second ring. Did they reach out to you? I asked. He hesitated. Your mom texted, said she was worried about you, asked if I thought you might take a break from the public stuff. I felt my stomach drop, and I told her I support whatever you decide, that she should talk to you directly, not through me. I closed my eyes. Thank you. But Lauren, are you okay? No. Yes. I lied. I just need to think. After we hung up, I stared at the letter again. It wasn't just a legal move, it was a message. They were willing to burn down what was left of the bridge if I didn't stop walking across it, but I wasn't interested in rebuilding anymore. I was interested in exposing the foundation they built it on. That night, I sent a message to my attorney. We began prepping a full countersuit. Not just in response to their claim, but to pursue damages. For identity misuse, for reputation interference, for fraud under my brand. By the next morning, the leak about the legal threat had already reached 3 outlets. None from my side. They wanted sympathy. They wanted to look like parents under attack by a wayward daughter with a megaphone. But I wasn't yelling, I was documenting. At 2:34 p.m., an anonymous source forwarded a memo, internal, from Heather to her PR team, outlining a Phase 2 redemption tour, 3 exclusive interviews, 1 magazine spread, all painting her as a misunderstood founder just trying to follow in her sister's footsteps. They weren't backing down, they were doubling down, and it meant one thing. It was time to hit the part of their story they couldn't rewrite, the contract, the clause, the moment everything started and everything was about to end. It was buried in a box labeled 2017, expansion phase. Back when I still thought they supported me. Back when I sent updates after every project like a daughter desperate for approval, not a founder building her own name. Troy helped me search the archive. We pulled 3 tubs of legal folders, press kits, and vendor contracts from my old downtown office. And then we found it. Signed by my mother. Co-signed by my father. It wasn't dramatic, no giant stamp, no legal thunderclap. Just a 2-page memorandum on my old letterhead, consent and relinquishment agreement for external affiliation use. It was dated the same month I launched LM Design Group officially, a symbolic formality, I thought at the time, a gesture to draw a line between my work and theirs. I had asked them to sign it after my father casually mentioned using my brand name during a real estate pitch. Back then, I didn't even have a trademark lawyer. But this simple document, it changed everything. Because buried in the second clause, just 2 lines down, was the legal hinge I needed. All future references, branding uses, representational affiliations, or partnerships initiated by the undersigned parties involving the name, operations, or image of LM Design Group must receive express written consent from Lauren Marks, founder and executive director. Troy read it twice, then looked up. This is airtight. I nodded. They gave me the power to stop this 8 years ago. And forgot. No, I said. They never read it. We scanned it, time-stamped it, prepped it for public disclosure, but I wasn't going to release it all at once. That's not how you end a lie. You let it unravel itself, one truth at a time. The next morning, I drafted a public letter. not aggressive, not loud, just direct. I posted it across every professional platform, framed under the heading, A Clarification of Identity. It read like closure, like professionalism, but every sentence was a scalpel. I am the founder of LM Design Group. I alone authorize all affiliations, statements, and extensions of its mission. Any initiatives presented using this name, logo, or historical documentation without my signature do not represent our work, our values, or our future direction. The message spread fast. I didn't name my parents, didn't mention Heather, but the silence that followed was deafening. Within hours, whispers turned to ruptures. 3 donors quietly withdrew from the Marks Family Fund. One publication pulled an exclusive interview with Heather before it aired. A 4th outlet reached out to me for a correction on their last profile, because now people were checking, verifying, remembering who built what. At 4:16 p.m., I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. Just one line. "We didn't know you still had that. No name, but I didn't need one." My mother always texted without punctuation. My father always used initials. Only Heather sent messages like this, almost impressed, almost afraid. Troy stood behind me, watching my face. "What now?" he asked. I looked at the framed blueprint of our first studio build hanging behind my desk. Now? Now the foundation was mine again, and the story just getting started. The invitation went out on company letterhead. A private event, exclusive, press-monitored, RSVP only, titled simply, Authenticity in Legacy Projects, a conversation with Lauren Marks. The guest list included architects, nonprofit leaders, press columnists, and our major sponsors. And 3 names handwritten at the bottom. Mom, Dad, Heather, no plus ones, no assistants, no room for excuses. They arrived together, late, as always. Heather wore ivory, subtle gold earrings, hair done like it was a photo shoot. My mother followed 2 steps behind, clutching her phone like a lifeline. My father's jaw was set. He looked like a man heading into a board meeting, not a reckoning. They didn't speak as they took their reserved seats in the front row. I stood on stage under soft amber lights, not with a microphone, but with my name in 20-point font behind me. The real one, the only one. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "Tonight is not about punishment. It's about ownership, of stories, of structures, and of silence that doesn't serve." No one moved. "Legacy is a word people love," I continued, "especially when they can borrow it, especially when it's been built cleanly by someone else's hands." I felt Heather's eyes narrow. But legacy doesn't survive through performance. It survives through truth. Then I turned slightly, tapped the remote in my hand. Behind me, a slide appeared, the consent and relinquishment agreement. Signed, dated, enlarged, 2 pages projected 10 feet high. My father visibly flinched. The room hushed deeper. "This document," I said, "was signed in 2017. It legally ensures that any use of my company name, mission, or affiliations must receive direct written approval from me." I looked straight at them. No such approval was given. Another tap. The next slide showed the family fund branding, a scan of the shelter brochure, Heather's fake title under the LM Design Group logo, then a split screen. My original project draft, watermarked, and the brochure's copy, identical, line by line. I let it hang. "The truth isn't about shame," I said. "It's about correction, and healing begins when theft is no longer normalized." I didn't expect applause, but it came. Quiet at first, then sharper, full. My mother looked down. Heather stared at the screen like she could will it away. My father stayed still, lips tight. I stepped forward. "Many of you have worked with us in good faith, donated in trust, partnered on visions that mattered. You deserve to know what was done without consent, and what we will never allow again." Then I said it clearly. As of tonight, the Marks Family Fund is no longer permitted to associate with any LM Design Group materials, personnel, or brand elements. Anyone continuing to donate under that banner is contributing to a falsified operation. I paused, and for the first time that evening, I smiled, because it was over, not in theory, not in the shadows, here, in front of the people who mattered. In a room they couldn't escape. I left the stage. Troy stood waiting, eyes glassy. He nodded once. "They're still sitting," he whispered. "Let them," I said. "They've never stayed long enough to hear me finish before." It came through late, a voice memo, no subject line, no context, just the blue waveform blinking at the edge of my screen, labeled "From Heather." For a moment, I didn't press play. I stared at the timestamp, 2:13 a.m. The time cowards always choose to speak. I finally tapped it. Her voice was calm, too calm, almost syrupy. Hey, Lauren, I figured you wouldn't pick up if I called, and texts get screenshot too fast these days. She laughed quietly. So, impressive, really. That stage, that speech, that contract you dug up, bravo. You really know how to play martyr in a tailored blazer. I didn't breathe. You won tonight, she continued. Congrats, the donors love you again. The press is calling you a vision of ethical leadership. Dad's not speaking, Mom's crying. You did it. A pause, then her voice shifted, lower. But just remember, I didn't use everything I had. Silence stretched across the recording like barbed wire. I kept your secret, she said. The one from college, the one no one ever talks about. My mouth went dry. I know what it cost you. I was there, remember? You think you shut it away in some memory box, but I remember it all. You begged me to lie for you. I stood. The room swayed slightly. My heart was a drum I couldn't mute. And I did, Heather said. I protected you. Even when Mom said you should be cut off completely, even when Dad said maybe it would straighten you out. You think I owe you for today? You owe me for 10 years of silence. The audio crackled. A breath. So if you want to keep shining, sister, I suggest you don't push any further. Take your win. Let the fun die quietly. I'll disappear like a good girl. A final exhale. Or don't, your choice. Just know I have your old journal. And I'm not the only one who's read it. Click, the message ended. The room was absolutely still. Troy was asleep on the office couch. He'd crashed there after the event, too tired to drive home. I didn't wake him. I just walked to my desk, sat down, pulled open the drawer, and found the journal. The real one. The one with the lock still intact, the ribbon faded with time. She didn't have it, but she knew what was in it. She remembered. And now she wanted to use it, to reverse what she couldn't win cleanly. Not through donors, not through deception, but through fear. I sat for a long time, flipping the soft pages without reading them, each line written by a version of me no one else knew, a version that bled in silence. She wanted me to hide again, to pull back, to erase the last 6 months of fight with a single flick of shame. But I wasn't that girl anymore, and the secret wasn't poison, it was part of the story. And stories don't break when they're told by the person who lived them. I didn't write a script. Not this time. I didn't call a PR firm, didn't rehearse with Troy, didn't stage anything behind a glass podium. I booked a simple, neutral studio. No spotlight, no graphics, just me, a single chair, and a camera lens. Because this part wasn't about optics, it was about voice. I've talked a lot about ownership these past weeks, I said, facing the lens. About brand theft, betrayal, manipulation. A deep breath. But what I haven't said, what I've never said, is why this story has always been personal. I reached into the bag beside me, pulled out the old journal, held it up. This is mine, I said. And yes, Heather remembers what's inside, but what she didn't count on was that I remember too. I cracked it open. The spine creaked faintly, like it hadn't moved in years. I turned to the page marked with a water-stained corner. This entry was written in my junior year of college, I continued. The night I found out I was pregnant. Silence. I let it sit. I didn't tell anyone at first, not my roommates, not my boyfriend, not even the nurse who confirmed it. I walked back to my dorm in a fog and wrote 3 pages straight. I didn't read the whole thing, but I quoted the last lines. If I tell them, they'll say it's my fault. If I don't, they'll never see the weight I carry. Either way, I lose. I looked back at the camera. My parents didn't find out right away. Heather did. She panicked, not because she was scared for me, but because she was scared for our image. She called my mom, who called my dad, and within 24 hours, I was booked for a spiritual reset retreat in Arizona. I smiled without humor. No one ever asked what I wanted, just what I'd do next to clean it up. And when I returned, I wasn't pregnant anymore. The camera didn't move. Neither did I. I never told anyone that part, not even Daniel, not even Troy, because shame is a quiet architect. It builds invisible cages. I placed the journal on the table beside me. And I'm done living in them. A pause, then. This isn't a plea for sympathy, it's a declaration of wholeness. Yes, I survived manipulation, erasure, theft, but before any of that, I survived silence, the kind built by people who said they loved me. I leaned forward slightly. Today, I reclaim not just my company or my name, but the years of my life that were swallowed by fear. I name the hurt, I face it, and I do it out loud. I stood up, unscripted, unshaken, and ended with one final truth. No one gets to blackmail a woman who's already walked through fire. You don't threaten someone who built a life from ash. The video was live within the hour. By nightfall, my inbox was full. Hundreds of messages. From strangers, from women, from men. From daughters and mothers and old college friends who remembered me quiet but never knew why. Heather never responded. Not a text, not a call. But a week later, the Marks Family Fund website quietly vanished. And for the first time in my adult life, I slept 8 full hours. It arrived on a Tuesday, no return address, no signature, just a plain brown box left outside my office door. Troy brought it in. You expecting something? I shook my head. The handwriting on the label was familiar. Sharp, minimal, all caps, my father's. He never wrote long notes, never emailed. He thought punctuation was excessive. But this, a silent box, delivered after silence, that was intentional. I cut the tape. Inside, a folder, a jewelry box, and an envelope. No letter, no apology, just these 3 artifacts packed with a precision that said, I know I can't undo this, but I still need you to see it. I opened the folder first. It held scans, contracts, financial documents, mostly dated over a decade ago. One caught my eye immediately, an early grant proposal I'd submitted as a junior designer. Rejected at the time. But someone had annotated it, not with red ink, with questions, suggestions, revisions. The handwriting again, his. Troy looked over my shoulder. He read it. He improved it, I said quietly. I flipped to the next few pages. Same thing. My father had edited at least 6 of my early submissions. Silent, invisible support. He never told me, never sent them back. But he'd read them, he'd cared. He just didn't know how to tell me. I placed the folder down and picked up the jewelry box. Inside, a bracelet. Gold. Thin, engraved with a single word. Still, no explanation. But I didn't need one. He wasn't asking for redemption. He was acknowledging presence, however broken, however late. I opened the envelope last. One photograph. Old. It was me, age 9, standing beside a Lego model I'd spent weeks building. Bent over it with fierce concentration while my father stood in the background, looking not at the camera, but at me. Not performing, just watching. Caring, quietly. I turned the photo over. 3 words written in black ink. I always did. That's all. No confession, no defense, just an echo, sent years late but heard anyway. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just placed the bracelet on my wrist, tucked the photograph into my desk, and exhaled for the first time in a long time. Some truths come loud. Some arrive in silence, but all of them matter, especially when they come from people who failed you. Then finally try, in whatever small way, to acknowledge the fracture. Later that night, I walked alone through our original design site. It was being renovated for a scholarship program now. Fully funded, independently managed, named not for my family, but for the clients we once served. I ran my hand along the studio's old entry wall. No lights, no camera, no audience, just me. And the voice I'd fought to protect. I'm still here, I whispered, not because they allowed it, but because I claimed it. Every scar, every silence, every thread of resilience they tried to fray. I wove it into something they couldn't touch. Not a brand, not a statement, a legacy of my own making.